Holy, we were this close from having a very different breaking news story because a video has just been released of a Southwest Airlines plane having to abort landing and pull back up because a private jet was crossing the runway.
I'm back, it's boy FITTIE to the E, and today we're taking a look at these crypts. I'm back, it's boy FITTIE to the E, and today we're going to be taking a look at these creepy TikTok videos. If you guys like the video, remember to like the video. These are the winners of the riddle. Yeah, I don't know, like everyone's been getting it. I'm gonna have to really up it, guys. Like I might have to really up it. I don't know, guys, this one might be a little bit hard, but if you know it, you know what I'm saying, put it in the comments. No cheating. What can run but never walks, has a mouth but never talks, has a head but never weeps, and has a bed but never sleeps? If you know this, put it down in the comments. It's a little bit harder, and as y'all know, these videos do get crazy, so make sure to watch at your own risk and remember to subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, please breathe through your clothing. Stay low.
Jesus Christ. I don't know, there's been a lot of aviation incidents going on lately. It's kind of scary.
The top 3 airlines that have never crashed, since that's something we're all concerned about right now. Number 3 is Southwest Airlines. I enjoy Southwest Airlines sometimes, and let me tell you, there is not a lot of pandemonium need for this worrying about air travel right now. It's pretty much as safe, if not safer, than it's ever been. It's just getting blown up in a media cascade. Number 2 is Hawaiian Airlines. Hawaiian Airlines, you can go to Hawaii all you want and don't have to worry. If you like this list and want more about other nonsense, follow me. Leave me a comment with the airline that's your favorite or one that didn't crash that I missed or something. Follow my wife Samantha, who I've tagged. Find me on Cameo if you want a personalized message. Number 1... Now this, I always think of Rain Man, the movie Rain Man, when Dustin Hoffman says it because he was right. Rain Man was right. Qantas never crashed.
That's so ironic that he said Southwest never crashed. I'm recording this today on February 25th. And today, on February 25th, this is coming out tomorrow on the 26th, Southwest almost crashed. Wow. You know what airlines truly never crashed that everyone always hates on? Spirit. I've never flown Spirit, but I've known that it's never crashed.
Holy, we were this close from having a very different breaking news story because a video has just been released of a Southwest Airlines plane having to abort landing and pull back up because a private jet was crossing the runway at the same time. Now, this happened in Chicago this morning, and luckily, after performing a go-around, the Southwest plane landed safely. But what is going on? We need to lock in.
Yo, everyone on board that flight should definitely give that pilot a round of applause. Like, they were this close from the news being another plane crash into another plane again compared to him saving them, if that makes sense. So, round of applause to that airplane captain.
Crazy things happening in the world right now. Spike the Chihuahua, born on November 30th, 1999, is the only dog left alive from the previous millennium. A Florida judge used a Quest 2 to experience a crime firsthand. A declassified document from the CIA says they used astral projection to visit Mars 1,000,000 years ago, back in 1984. Taylor Swift did not actually sign a guitar that a man bought for $4,000 just to destroy. A woman was left disappointed after filming what she thought was Northern Lights when in reality was actually a tomato factory nearby. A Wisconsin man was found to have faked his own death after being found in Uzbekistan. 43 monkeys still remain on the run from a South Carolina lab. Costco was forced to recall over 80,000 pounds of butter because the label forgot to mention that it had milk. A raccoon burst through the ceiling tiles at LaGuardia Airport. A British man passed away falling off a bridge in Spain while he was creating online content.
A man was caught attempting to smuggle cocaine from Cartagena to Amsterdam by hiding the stash under his toupee. The plot was foiled as the man attempted to board the flight last week. His toupee concealed 19 capsules of cocaine, street value estimated to be around $10,000. He has been arrested and he faces charges now of trafficking, manufacturing, and carrying narcotic substances. Back to you guys.
Toupee.
Creative. But not successful.
Didn't work.
Dude, that was hella creative. How did they even find that out? Like, that is creative. Like, you would have never, I mean, I personally would have never known, but they probably have machines for all that stuff.
He sees dinner. Just hold it nice and close to the top. Don't drop it yet.
But what the fuck is that, man? What?
Make him come get it.
He won't. You?
Thank you.
Fuck. He's brave. That snatch could have literally been his hand. Just gone, just like that.
Some fun facts you probably didn't know. The Mona Lisa was stolen in 1911 for 2 whole years, and the museum thought it was out for photography the entire time. Great white sharks are showing up consistently at a mid-ocean location that we call the White Shark Cafe, for reasons we don't fully understand yet. China has over 3,000 miles of tunnels underground to transport intercontinental ballistic missiles. Inspired by how shipwrecks always create new reefs at the bottom of the ocean, New York City is now retiring subway cars in the ocean, dumping them to provide for new reefs. In Cluj, Romania, you can pay for your bus ticket by doing 20 squats. Meanwhile, elderly and disabled ride the bus for free, always. Bubble wrap was initially invented to be a wallpaper. Armadillos give birth to 4 identical quadruplets every time there's a birth. Genericide is the term we created when a trademark is lost because it becomes a generic name for that item. For example, escalator lost its rights when it became the general term for moving stairs.
Disturbing kid toys that wear band, evil stick. Hidden behind the foilet, show a demonic young girl. Taiman stars. There was a hidden message inside the Thai Monstars that says, turn off the TV, potty time with Elmo. The Elmo toy was saying, who wants to die? Cuddle and coo doll. The doll was saying, Islam is the light. Cabbage Patch Kids. The doll almost ripped out a girl's hair. Sky dancers. It flew in random, unpredictable directions, which injured children and adults.
Having coffee injected into your veins could be one of the worst ways to die. This is another worst deaths imaginable. Viewer discretion is advised. This story happened in Brazil back in 2012 to an 80-year-old patient. One of her nurses was a trainee. She had just started, I think it was 3 or 4 days prior to working with her. This patient had 2 separate bags. One of them was for food, the other one was for medicine. The 2 bags are really close to one another, and the nurse would later say it's really easy to get them confused. I don't know the circumstances behind this, but the patient, I guess, was getting coffee and milk, I believe was supposed to be injected into the feeding portion of, the tubes. But the inexperienced nurse instead injected the coffee and the milk directly into the bag where the medicine was supposed to go. Almost immediately, the patient began to react. She appeared to be in some kind of trauma. She was having a very loud reaction to this. Unfortunately, once this happens, it's pretty much already too late. It took about 3 to 4 hours for this patient to die from what happened. The coffee and milk would run straight to, according to the doctors who worked on her, it went straight to her heart and to her lungs. And basically it filled up her lungs and it caused her to have the effect of drowning. Not to mention it was actually a hot liquid. So slowly this patient drowned because of this. And she passed away after being in some significant pain and discomfort. I know that the 23-year-old nurse was charged with involuntary manslaughter. However, I do not know the outcome as to what happened to her. But unfortunately, because of her inexperience, This poor woman suffered for a couple of hours.
When they said it took her 3 to 4 hours to die, I was like, she suffered crazy.
I've never really been the one to believe in orbs, but someone explained this to me. Gabby Petito's family went to the location in Wyoming where her life was taken, and they all took a photo, and there was this thing that came up in the photo. Her family's convinced that that's her presence, and a lot of people also think the same thing, but I've never seen an orb that big. Others have had a different explanation for this, saying that it's the reflection of the sun with the lens, and that's why it created this thing. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
She took the life of her 3-year-old son so he wouldn't tell anyone about her affair. On April 28th of 2023, Dion Singh held an inauguration party for his new plastic store in India. Among the guests was Dion's neighbor Uday Indolia. Dion had no idea that his wife Jyoti Rathore was having an affair with Uday. While people at the party were busy socializing, Uday snuck off with Jyoti and they went to the terrace, and that is when they got physical with each other. But Jyoti had froze when she saw her 3-year-old son Jatin because he had followed her to the terrace. He had just witnessed everything that was going on with his mother and Uday. At this point, Jyoti is freaking out and she needs to come up with something, so she grabs her son and throws him off of the terrace, which was 2 floors. Jatin suffered serious head injuries and died the next day at the hospital. Jyoti's next plan was to lie to her husband and tell him that their son had fell off of the terrace because he had slipped. Because of this, she ended up having nightmares and hallucinations, and she ended up confessing to her husband. Dion recorded a video and audio of her confession and handed it over to police, and Jyoti and Uday were both arrested.
Dude, that is such an impulsive decision on the mom's part. She gonna do some scummy stuff like that and then throw her baby off. Yo, honestly, like, I don't condone this, but she could have honestly lied her way out of it. Like, she really could have if she really wanted to play it like that. But instead, she kind of chose an impulsive decision that gave her a quick solution, but a long-term consequence.
A cannibalistic family whose home is hiding an even darker secret. Let's talk about what might be one of the most terrifying games of the year. Cannibal Abduction. Full game playthrough on my channel. This is your worst nightmare. Your car stalls out deep in the American countryside and you're abducted by a family of cannibals. Explore the house, solve puzzles, and try to figure out exactly what's going on here. You know the family eats human flesh, but wait a minute, what was that noise? One of the family members knows you're here, and they are coming for you. Cannibal Abduction is an incredibly tense horror game that feels like the perfect slasher movie, and the twist ending was incredible and totally unexpected. Don't miss this one.
This is why you need to look behind you before taking a selfie.
The innocence of this picture makes what happened even more haunting. 3 friends stand on railway tracks, hoping to capture the passing train on the tracks beside them. They took a selfie and were really excited to get the close proximity to the train. The wind was even blowing in their hair. But do you see that light? That is another approaching train. Now, the girls couldn't hear that train on the track because they were so close to the other tracks and the other train. However, it was 12 seconds from when that photo was taken before the train made impact. Now, the train driver reportedly tried to blare his horn, but they must have assumed it was another train. 2 of the girls died on the spot and 1 later in hospital. For more 7 Sins Crime, hit that plus button.
There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now out of Utah. Let's talk about it. This is 21-year-old Elizabeth Green. She was last seen walking to work along a dirt road in Callio, Utah, which is an extremely remote area in northern Snake Valley. Like, there really isn't much out there, and the area she went missing is roughly 3 hours from any major city. Elizabeth had just started a new job at a remote ranch, and she was walking there that day, but never made it, and it's almost like she vanished into thin air. She was reported missing to the police later that day, and they began looking for her right away. Authorities have searched the area around her home and the ranch that she was going to work at, including the route that she would have taken to get there, but no trace of Elizabeth has been found. Police searched the ranch, which has not been publicly named, just 1 day after Elizabeth was reported missing, but according to them, they didn't find anything suspicious. The rancher said that she never made it to the ranch that day and that he had no contact with her, so it's left authorities wondering what truly happened to her that day. Police have tried pinging her phone, but they aren't able to get a connection, and and they've searched all of her electronic devices, but they've all turned up nothing. There's been no activity on her social media accounts since that day either. Her mom thinks that Elizabeth could have possibly been picked up that day, but she just doesn't know by who. There's also a possibility that she arranged to have someone pick her up, but they didn't show, which could have led to Elizabeth trying to walk through the remote desert by herself. According to her family, she does suffer from some mental health issues and has ran away before, but no matter what, she's always stayed in contact with her family and she's always come back within a day. She would never just up and leave like this. Just based on the circumstances, police believe that she's in immediate danger. Like I mentioned before, Callao is extremely remote and so far away from any major city, so the fact that she just mysteriously disappeared and left behind no trace in a matter of hours is just terrifying. It's now been over a month and Elizabeth is still missing. With the summer weather coming up, we need to find out what really happened to her that day. These are some of her characteristics and what she was last seen wearing. If you have any information about this case, please contact the number on the screen.
This next video was submitted to me by Sienna G, who received the following clip from her aunt. In the footage, Sienna's aunt is filming her son, who appears to be roaming around inside a room. Although initially thinking that her aunt had sent her a cute video of her little cousin, Sienna soon felt that something was off about the clip. It wasn't obvious at first, but upon watching it the second time, she instantly got chills. The clip, as it turns out, was sent to Sienna because something strange was captured. Have a look.
How mommy take out the stuff look like this? Check it out. Come on.
As Sienna's aunt films her son, she catches something passing by in front of the camera, but it's really quick when it happens. At exactly 17 seconds into the video, a dark silhouette emerges from the left side of the screen before making its way across the room. By slowing the footage, one can see that something distinct is moving past the camera, but it's also when you slow the footage that the video gets even more creepy. Looking at the figure frame by frame, you'll notice that it has a full torso and also what looks like an arm. However, one thing is missing, its head. Despite moving pretty fast, we can still make out what looks like a body, but nowhere in sight do we see a head. This fact alone is what spooked Sienna and her aunt upon looking closely at the clip. If no one else had been inside the room, then what was this? A definitive answer to this question has yet to be given.
I don't know if it's me. They said they can't figure out what it is and it doesn't really have like a figure or a shape to it, but to me it looks like bro's little sister. It looks like bro's little sister just ran across. I mean, I don't know, they said no one else was there, but to me that's what it looked like.
So here are my personal reasonings why ghosts are a made up fairy tale and that we need to stop believing them as a culture. Number one, little convenient that it's only at night that we see shit, right? You never see a ghost in the daytime. Darkness has this interesting quality about it that doesn't let you see. So, you know, you're not going to be able to see well. So people are looking in the darkness and their eyes are trying to make sense of anything and they think they saw something. If you stare at the darkness long enough, you're going to see something. There's a Twilight Zone episode about it. There's also a thing called pareidolia. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a psychological phenomenon that makes you think you see faces and shit. Human beings evolved to understand facial recognition and, you know, subtle cues to communicate. So we're really good at that, but we see faces and shit that's not actually there a lot of the time. Another thing, a lot of people say that children and dogs have a little bit more connection to the spiritual world. I just find it convenient that animals and babies seem to have more of a spiritual connection to that side of the world. Maybe because they can't fucking talk and they're notably stupid. Do you know why your dog was staring at the edge of the bed and growling? Because it is stupid. Because it has 3 thoughts in total it can have and it can't watch TV so it's bored. You know why your baby is staring in the corner and laughing? Because it doesn't know what the fucking human body can do yet. It's got the user manual and it's hitting random buttons and just trying shit out. Number 3, ghosts are most seen at spots that are spooky or deserted. What are the odds? It's always a spooky cabin in the woods or an empty mental asylum. How come it's never like, you know, a DMV? If the argument is that there's bad energy there because something horrible happened, how come there's no ghosts at the beach? People drown at the beach every day. Why are there no ghosts at the beach? Also, how come it's always a human ghost? The majority of things that have died on Earth are not human. They're like ants and shit. How come I don't have rat ghosts running through my apartment?
That dude is funny, I'm not gonna lie. Yo, I've known so many people that will go to the grave, that ghosts, spirits, the afterlife, the afterworld is real, and I have some people that are like, nah, none of that shit's real. What do you guys think? If you guys believe in it, put your thoughts about that in the comments.
This is what things look like under a microscope. Now you're probably wondering what this thing is that looks like a bunch of happy faces. Well, this might shock you, but that's actually grass. Next up we have a worm, and they don't look like they can hurt anybody, right? Well, once you see it underneath a magnifying glass, you might think different. And have you ever wondered what salt and pepper look like? Well, here it is. Why does it look like rocks and marshmallows? Now let's take a look at what a tiny ant looks like under a microscope. Here it is. Now that has to be the most terrifying one yet. Next up we have a human eye. Here's what it looks like under the microscope.
Have you ever wondered how accurate police sketches are? Well, this sketch was actually pulled from someone's subconscious during hypnotherapy, so let's find out. In 1960, 4 teens were camping in Finland, and the last thing that this guy remembers was falling asleep. When he woke up, he was in the hospital, and he learned that he and his friends were attached through the tent and that none of his friends had survived. The only thing was that teen, Nils Gustafsson, didn't remember a thing after falling asleep that night. And honestly, that caused a lot of people to think he was responsible for his friends' deaths. So Nils goes to hypnotherapy to see if he can recall anything from that night, and during hypnosis, he starts remembering a face. This is what he described to the hypnotherapist as the person who attacked him and his friends that night. And while this is happening, this man gets admitted to the hospital. He has splotches of red all over his clothes, and the nurses said it looked like he had been running through the woods. And I'm sure you probably see it, but this caused him to be the lead suspect. I cover the whole story this week on the podcast, which has so many twists and turns, including what this guy has to do with the story, so make sure you check it out.
What is a true crime case that just haunts you? This one is absolutely chilling. This is Susan Harrison. She was a mother and a wife, and she was described as an incredibly lovely person. In 1982, she met a man named Jim Harrison from her husband. They met because of her husband, and by 1988, they had both divorced their spouses and they got married. From the very beginning, this relationship was tumultuous to say the very least. Susan is not around to defend herself, but according to Jim, Susan would often become manic and she would start yelling and screaming and throwing things. These fights weren't just verbal altercations, they were often physical altercations. Now, Jim does say that he never physically did anything to Susan, that he only defended himself. This is Jim, and he is 100% adamant that he did not hurt Susan. But on the other hand, people who knew Susan said that this just wasn't like her, that they had never seen this side of her, especially her 2 sons, Nick and John. Susan's youngest son, Nick, remembers a night in particular where John was away looking at colleges and he was staying the night with Susan and Jim. And he says that he woke up at about 2 a.m. and heard them fighting. And then Susan ran into his room and said that Jim was hurting her. Nick decided he didn't want to stay, so he called John, his older brother's girlfriend, and asked if she would come pick him up. And she agreed to do that and told him to wait outside for her. He went outside to wait, but the altercation soon spilled out into the yard, and that's where he saw Jim physically hurting Susan. Nick says that he stepped in between Jim and said that he needed to stop hurting his mother. So he saw these physical altercations and saw that Jim was often the aggressor. But again, this is all alleged. This cycle would go on and off, with Susan leaving and trying to get restraining orders and then going back to Jim, as we often see in these kinds of relationships. But eventually it seemed as if Susan was stepping away from Jim, and she even started her own lampshade business called Shady Lady. But again, she would go back and forth, and finally her boys told her that she could either live with Jim, but they would be out, or she could choose the boys, and of course she chose her children. On August 5th of 1994, Nick, Susan's youngest son, was going to Susan's house. They were going to visit relatives in Boston the next day, so he came the night before. When he arrived at Susan's house, he realized that the door was open and her keys were on the kitchen table, but there was nobody home. Nick waited in Susan's house until about 2 a.m, but Susan never came home. So the next day he called John and let him know what was going on, and they called the police. We'll get into the investigation in part 2. Give me a couple of minutes to get it up. It should be down in the comments. Here is part 2 to the case of Susan Harrison. Police immediately started investigating, and the first person they wanted to talk to was Jim. Jim told police that Susan had come to his house that day, and she had been very agitated when she got there. But she had taken a nap, and when she woke up, she was feeling a lot better, and they had a really good evening together. But after about 2 hours, he says that Susan fell asleep again, and when she woke up this time, she was once again upset and visibly agitated. He told police that Susan became angry and belligerent and then left the house at about 10 p.m., and that was the last time he saw her. About 6 weeks later, they found Susan's car. They found it at the Washington National Airport, about 60 miles south of her home. It had a full tank of gas, the keys were in the ignition, but the batteries were dead, so they started to wonder if maybe Susan had just walked away from her life. Jim was asked to take a polygraph test, to which he failed miserably, but he said that it was just the test that was faulty and he was telling the truth. We do know that polygraph tests are notoriously unreliable, but it is still strange in my opinion and worth noting. But it's not just the polygraph that's strange. Jim changed his story multiple times when asked where he was the morning that Susan went missing. He told police that he was out on a jog, and people knew that he was, the article said he was an overweight alcoholic who did not exercise. Susan's first husband also called him the morning that Susan was reported missing between 9:30 and 10, and Jim did not answer his phone. On top of that, the cleaning lady who cleaned Jim's house was asked to clean the basement, which normally was not used and very clean. She rarely went down there, and Jim didn't go down there either. But this time when she went down there, she said that there was a lot of dirt and it was really dirty. Jim also asked her how often she changes out her vacuum bags. The cleaning lady didn't know about Susan's disappearance when she was asked about this, but when she found out, she came forward with this information to police, but unfortunately she had already cleaned out the vacuum bag. There was another man that was working on the electricity or the lines around the house because apparently there was a power outage that night, and he thought he saw Susan's car leaving at about 4 in the morning, which is several hours later than when Jim said she left. On November 29th of 1996, which is about 2 years after she went missing, her remains were found. Susan's remains were found by hikers. They found it in a shallow grave. It was discovered that it was her based on the jewelry that were on these skeletal remains. The medical examiner believes that the injuries to her head conclude that this was in fact a murder. In July of 1997, police did execute a search warrant on Jim's house, but it's never been known if anything was found. And later that month, Nick and John, Susan's sons, would file a wrongful death lawsuit against Jim for $17 million that would settle privately out of court. And sadly, Susan's case has never been solved, despite there being very questioning circumstances around it. Jim did pass in 2007 at 71 years old and has never had to pay for anything that happened to Susan. But police are still actively looking for any leads. Personally, I think this case is just so tragic because there should be answers for the family and there's just not. But what are your thoughts on this? Let me know down in the comments and follow for more true crime.
Nah, that was so interesting. I was gonna say it was so random, but it really kind of wasn't, because she was like, yeah, you know, she went missing. Her car was just found on the side of the highway. But just out of nowhere, she was like, yeah, and then her remains were just found. I was like, okay, that was a little bit random.
You know what this video makes me think of? And it's gonna surprise a lot of you actually, because what I'm about to say is not going in the direction that you think it's about to go in. But 6 years ago, there was an immensely viral Reddit post that I think about every single time I know somebody that has a baby. And I think about it so often because of the absolute plot twist that it has, okay? It was originally titled, "My husband is not bonding with our 5-week-old son and I'm not sure what to do." She said, just like the title says, my husband has yet to hold our son. He won't call him by his name. He always refers to him as the baby. He won't do anything to help take care of him. And on Tuesday, my husband moved into the camper to get quiet time, as he calls it. I've seen him for maybe 10 minutes since Tuesday. Up until our son was born, we had a great marriage. I don't know what to do. She then starts making these comments, right, where she's like, he's really curt and abrupt. He left when I was giving birth. He didn't come back to the hospital for 2 days. His behavior is so off from his usual self, it's like he's a completely different person. Obviously, everybody's like, what a fucking asshole, right? She's like, he was really excited right up until my water broke. Then he turned into this. Any tips for starting a conversation? He honestly scares me. I've never seen his eyes so cold. He used to be so affectionate. He hasn't kissed me, hugged me, or even held my hand since before our son was born. When I reach out to him, he recoils and pulls away. Girl, the plot twist that's coming your way right now, she ends up calling the fire department. Like An ambulance comes to check on him because she's like, I think he actually, like, something's like wrong, right? They take him to the emergency room and he can't remember his hometown that he lived in for 22 years, his mother's name, or his father's name. In genuinely the biggest twist I have ever seen on any Reddit post, this man has CTE, okay? She says, I met with a counselor that the neurological department employs to help patients' families deal with the fallout. She told me to prepare to take on more and more of the responsibilities around the house. It's a worry because my husband is the breadwinner and I can't replace his income on my skills and education. She explained that patients with the trauma my husband has exist on routine. When something disrupts that routine, like a new baby, they often can't cope. Without even knowing it, having a baby sent their lives into a complete spiral, okay? Because she says here, with my husband's injury, he can function well in a routine, but babies don't do routines. Babies don't do schedules. She ends up having to take care of not only her newborn baby and her husband, because doctors are telling her to like prepare to put him into an assisted living home because of how bad it is. But he's also basically losing his job. They can't afford his medical bills. The medical bills from giving birth to the baby are coming at the same time. They live 6 hours round trip from where he needs to get like care, like neurological care and checkups, like a couple times a week. So they can't go as often as he needs assisted. Like, I'm telling you, this ruins their lives. It's traumatizing. This is a very traumatizing post if you go and read it. But this part right here, she says that with a counselor, her husband held his baby for the very first time, and then he teared up and said, this is all I ever wanted, and I can't even enjoy it. Now, I'm obviously not saying that Justin Bieber has CTE, okay? The point I'm making is that having a child can sometimes be incredibly disruptive to people, okay? We know a lot about postpartum with women. Postpartum affects men as well, like maybe not chemically, but with, having a baby changes your life entirely. Even to people that you would think would have full-time nannies and a lot of help and this and that. I just, whatever he's going through, hopefully he's getting the help and that he needs. And I'm assuming, the people close to him are supportive and working on it. Because this is like, obviously, like, it's hard to watch. And I really wish him and Haley and that baby the best.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, having a child is a life-changing experience because, you're bringing another life into the world that you got to take care of for, like, its whole life, pretty much. I don't know, though. A lot of people have been saying that Justin Bieber has just been doing a lot of drags. Like, a lot of, like, a lot of, And then that's why he's kind of been, like, in this weird phase. I mean, I feel like growing up, like, but at the same time, you really can't, though, because, like, how traumatizing that must be for him, because he's probably seen, heard, been through so many things with these grown, like, twisted individuals that have so much money and power that they can get away with anything. Like, as a kid, you don't really realize none of that, but as you get older, you realize, like, the industry is low-key kind of weird. And Justin Bieber has definitely been through a lot, mostly since he, like, got ushered in, no pun intended, by Usher, and then Diddy was Usher's mentor, so like he met Diddy, Usher, and all those kind of weirdos, you know what I'm saying? But hopefully he stays strong, he stays good, and he doesn't end up doing some stuff that he's gonna end up regretting.
Thank you all for watching this here video.